like to call the April 5th, 2022 regular session of the Harris County Board of Commissioners to order, and invitation was given by you, Andrew.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for your goodness to us. We thank you, Lord, for bringing us here safely tonight, for protecting us and taking care of us. We pray that you would give us wisdom to make good decisions, Lord, that we would look at everything we do, God, as what is best for our county and for those of us who love this place. We praise you, Lord, for everything you've done for us. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nancy, do we have any appearance of citizens?
No, sir, no one signed up.
Thank you, ma'am. No old business it looks like on our agenda other than minutes. So we have a motion for the minutes of the regular session of March 15, 2022.
So moved to approve minutes.
You have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, going on down, no appearance citizens, no business. Going to new business, we had the financial statement of February 2022 was provided for us on March 15th. Clint Chastain, our CFO, will be in attendance to discuss, support, and respond to any questions, but we need a, but he's not here. Anybody have any questions for our county manager, anybody? Do we have a motion and a vote? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the financial statements. All in favor? All opposed? That statement is approved. Next item on business, I believe, is the ACCG defined contribution plan, be it statement, documents, IRS, and resolution. The county is required to restate our ACCG 401A defined contribution plan for senior management employees. The restatement incorporate changes to the plan must be made to reflect changes in the law and protect the plan's tax qualified status under the IRS code. Mr. Paul Bates with ACCG will be in attendance to discuss and or respond to questions relating to the restatement. Mr. Bates.
As you say, Mr. Commissioner, the documents are simply a 5-year requirement to restate. IRS, as we know, changes laws and requirements from time to time. Our council has reviewed the documents and to all of our member counties that have a defined contribution plan. And that's basically, is keep it simple as possible. Housekeeping is what we're doing.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Bates? I have a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the restatement of the defined contribution plan and the resolution needed for the restatement.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? All right. It passes. Our next item of business is the retirement plan proposal by also Mr. Paul Bates and enhancements to the employee defined benefits and defined contribution retirement plans have been discussed at several public meetings since October. After those public meetings and thoughtful consideration, amendments to the retirement plans have been prepared by Mr. Paul Bates, the ACCG retirement consultant, and are ready for approval. To recap the enhancements to the employees defined benefits retirement plan, the multiplier is changing from 0.75% of the first $6,600 of compensation and 1.25% of compensation in excess of $6,600 plus a fixed dollar amount of $36 a year of credited service to 2.0% of all average monthly compensation with no fixed dollar amount per year of credited service effective July 1, 2022. To recap the enhancement to the employee defined contribution retirement plan, the employer matching contribution equals to 50% of the first 4% of compensation that the participant defers to the 457B plan, eliminating the dollar limit on employee matching contributions and eliminating the $30,000 cap on compensation taken into account for purposes of calculating employer basic contributions effective July 1, 2022. Mr. Paul Bates is also in attendance for any questions or concerns of this.
I have a question. Mr. Banks, does this make Harris County competitive with other counties as far as our retirement plan for our employees?
As we said in the earlier meeting, we brought the comparables, and so you look at the numbers, yes, it does.
Anybody have any other questions? We have a motion and a vote needed to approve the amendment to the defined benefit, defined contribution plan, and to approve the resolution needed for the amendment. And I will state this before that, I've been of the opinion since day one that I thought we should go back 5 to 10 years on retirement, help some of our longer standing employees that's been here 30, 35 years. I think what we're doing is good, and we're changing it. I still think that we should have tried to go back, especially for some of the employees we've had that's been here 30, 35 years. They were under this old plan, and I understand that, that might be hard to do, but I still feel that's what we should have done, or should at least try to do that for some of them. So just, that's my statement on that. I do agree with us changing what we're changing here. I just don't think we're doing enough. That's just the way I feel about it. So do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? And I oppose basically for my statements what I said. I just don't think we're doing enough for our employees. And the motion carries. All right, moving on down to number 5, that'd be the county manager. We have the bid award for the phase 5 of the Man-O-War Railroad Recreation Trail.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Board of Commissioners, Phase 5 of the Man-O-War Trail, which begins at the Callaway Country Store and ends at the south side of Hamilton. A distance of about 5.4 miles has been designed and bid out. So this project has been designed and bid out on the bid deadline date of March 30th. 6 bids were received, so it was a really healthy response from 6 different companies. The low bid was Piedmont Paving out of Newnan, Georgia, at $1,365,074.35. The high bid was Southeastern Site Development, also from Newnan, at $2,607,645.00. So the low bidder was Piedmont Paving of Newnan with a bid of right at $1.365 billion. And this company also constructed phase 2 and 3 of the project back in 2020. So funding for this project was budgeted and will come from T-SPLOST. If approved, this project is scheduled to be completed by late November of this year, all the way from the country store atop of Pine Mountain to the south side of Hamilton, 5.4 more miles. And this will make the trail a total of 10 miles. So if you go there and come back, it's 20 miles. That's a nice ride, or a nice walk. So a motion and vote is needed to award the bid to Piedmont Paving in the amount of $1,365,074.35, and to authorize the county manager and county clerk to execute all necessary documents. And I just want to say that this funding is coming from T-SPLOST, and that T-SPLOST ends this December. It's going to be voted on May 24th of this year as part of the election. May 24th, advanced voting begins early May, to ask the voters to continue this T-SPLOST for an additional 10 years. If it's not voted in, we lose 1%, or about $100,000 a year, a month, $100,000 a month. So again, we're asking the voters to continue the T-SPLOST for an additional 10 years on the election of May 24th of this year. So it's a great funding source for projects such as this.
Doesn't the T-SPLOST also fund some of our LMIG and some of our other stuff that we have?
T-SPLOST will fund not only additional mileage to the Rails to Trails project, but it will also be the 10% required match of our LMIG resurfacing programs to resurface various county roads that we do every year. It also will help patch county roads. It will also improve State Route 315, the 315 corridor. If this referendum is approved on May 24th of this year, State Route 315 will be improved in the next several years to alleviate traffic issues on the 315 and the I-185 corridor primarily. If this case plus is not approved, those improvements will simply not happen. So it's a shameless plug.
Anyone have any other questions? If not, I make the motion that we award the bid to Piedmont Paving for the amount of $1,365,074.35 and authorize the county manager and county clerk to execute all necessary documents. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. All right, we have the project updates. Mr. Dowling.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Board of Commissioners, the project updates, a quick overview of the 56 projects the county's working on this fiscal year. Number 4, update of the Unified Development Code. That project has been worked on for about 2 years now, and a final public hearing will be tonight. Or it might not be a final public hearing, I don't know. Number 6, the new EMS volunteer fire department facility within the Northwest Harris Business Park. That design is proceeding, so it should be bid out probably, I'd say, the next 45 days. So a new EMS volunteer fire department facility within the Northwest Harris Business Park. Under construction soon. Number 9, replace the prison roof. That is almost completed. If it will just get ready, they can finish. Number 19, LG Park. Phase 1 is done, and Phase 2 is being incorporated in the upcoming budget. And the board will see the proposed budget on the May 3rd commission meeting. And then approve it probably in late June, July. Number 24, Phase 5 of the Man of War Trail. That was approved tonight. So the general contractor will start working on that really soon and be finished by late November of this year. Again, this list of 56 projects is on the county's website and it's updated weekly. Number 41, the Waterworks Administration Building. That should be on bid this week. And open bids up in May 12th, award in June, beginning construction in July. Hopefully it'll be finished by Christmas. So that Waterworks Administration Building, right next door to the current facility, is on schedule to begin and be finished by Christmas, if everything goes well. A lot of supply management and supply chain problems. Number 44, Phase 1 of the renovations to the courthouse. That project is being getting an estimated cost. The cost seems to be going up every day. Finding a lot of problems in that courthouse. Number 46, the new Mercer Medical Clinic. That is almost completed. The lease agreement has been approved. The ribbon cutting is April 20th. So that's a great asset to the community, the Mercer Medical Clinic. Number 47, impact fee study. Hopefully the next commission meeting on April the 19th, the board will consider that the impact fees and the ordinance. Number 52, the T-Plus referendum for May 24th. We discussed that a little bit earlier. And you can see on page 7, the ARP, those projects are getting completed. The Green Drive water lines that have been installed, so that's completed. And you can see the lost and splost collections for the month and The single-family home building permits for the month of March was 30, to bring up, I think, right at 206 for the fiscal year. So it was 30 permits issued during March. And we have 3 months left in the fiscal year, so we will probably be matching the last several years' permit issuance. That's about it. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
I don't have a question, but the maintenance building at Ellsworth Park looks very nice.
We get a lot of compliments on that.
Anyone have any questions? If not, thank you, sir. Moving on down to county attorney, we have the opioid settlement agreement. Is he on the phone?
Yes.
Yes, Chairman, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this item for the board's consideration involves the opioid settlement agreements. You may recall that Harris County, as with many jurisdictions, elected not to participate in the actual litigation. That being said, though, a master settlement has been reached between a manufacturer and a handful of the distributors and the states that were involved in litigation. And as part of that settlement agreement, it allowed local governments to participate in the settlement regardless of whether they participated in the litigation itself. And the amount that the state of Georgia is receiving is approximately $636 million, 25% of which is dedicated to go directly to local governments that opt in, which is roughly $160 million that must be used for opioid remediation efforts. And then the other 75% will be used by the state for statewide programs, but 40% of which will then funnel back into regions that local governments within those regions will have input on how that money is spent for opioid remediation. The thought process was, it's basically money on the table. If the county didn't opt in, then that portion would go back to the state and would not go directly to Harris County. And so there is the deadline to opt in was March 31st. So following the chairman having individual discussions, it was his understanding there was a consensus to go ahead and opt in into the settlement. So he executed those documents, and therefore a motion that is now needed to ratify the execution that Chairman Zerner already executed.
Does anyone have any other questions for our county attorney? If not, I make the motion that we ratify the settlement agreement for the opioid settlement agreement.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passed. Anything else, Mr. Britt?
No, that's it, unless you have any questions for me. Oh, actually, I do have one thing, I'm sorry. The local legislation adding Harris County to the Regional Transportation Authority did pass during the legislative session, both the House and the Senate, so now it is on the governor's desk for signature, so hopefully we'll get word on that soon to make it official.
All right, thank you. All right, looks like we have about 12 minutes, so we'll take a brief recess before we start the public hearing.
Hey, Randy, you want to
Call the public hearing to order. The conflict of interest forms have been turned over to the county clerk. The public hearing is for the purpose of considering each application for a text amendment. The application will be read, including the sections of the ordinance to be amended and reasons for the request. Presentation will be by the county manager or consultant, if applicable, and will be recognized to present and explain the amendment. Comments by individuals in favor of the application. Individuals in favor of the amendment will be permitted to speak upon recognition, and each person is to provide their name, individual, and their address of where they live. Individuals are limited to 5 minutes each. Unused time may not be given up to any other individual wishing to speak. Then we'll have comments by individuals in opposition to the application, and these individuals in opposition will be permitted to speak upon recognition, and each person is to provide their name and address, and individuals are limited to 5 minutes each. Unused time may not be given up to any other individual wishing to speak. Then we'll have a summary rebuttal, which is upon the completion of all those comments in opposition of the application, the Board of Commissioners shall make summary remarks, rebuttal, and any or final comments. Then we'll close the public hearing upon the completion of these remarks, and then we would have action. For tonight's public hearing, we have a text amendment to Code of Ordinances. The applicant is the Harris County Board of Commissioners. Amendments are for the Appendix A, zoning ordinance articles 1 through 10, Appendix B, subdivision articles 1 through 20, Chapter 4, planning and development articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9, Chapter 5, public safety, health, and sanitation articles 4, Chapter 7, water and sewage and utilities, Article 1, other associated sections of the code or ordinances intended to be incorporated into the Unified Development Code. The purpose is the rewriting zoning regulations, subdivision regulations, and association codes permitting or pertaining to land development to create a Unified Development Code to implement the Harris County Comprehensive Plan and associated county land development policies. The Planning Commission recommendation is approval. Staff recommendation is approval. I believe our consultant is here to speak on this matter. Mr. Steve, if you would.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for reading that introduction. I won't restate that, neither will I read the entirety of the Unified Development Code as proposed, to everyone's relief, I'm sure. It has, of course, been posted for quite some time, available for everyone to read and review. So if it's okay, what I would like to do is just give a very brief recap of the process that we have worked through that brings us to today, and then provide a bit more detail about the most recent revisions, which are highlighted in the Unified Development Code final draft as posted. And then I think there might be a few other people here interested in speaking. Starting off, we've worked together for, as was introduced earlier in the County Manager's report, a couple of years plus on this Unified Development Code effort, starting in late 2019 by my recollection. Through the course of 2019, the end of in 2020, which was a fun year for all, we had a series of meetings with advisory committee, a series of public meetings, various aspects of analysis and development working towards drafting a new Unified Development Code in a manner consistent with your existing code of ordinances, not throwing it all out and starting from scratch, but working with foundation that you have, but also recognizing the important and definite need to significantly improve and update on the ordinances that you have that currently govern development. And all worked within a matter of consistency with your comprehensive plan, which is the policy that guides land use development. So that led us into 2021, and through 2021, the process of drafting a Unified Development Code, which in September of 2021, the complete draft Unified Development Code was posted for all to review after having multiple meetings, as mentioned. In October 2021, the Planning Commission held the first public hearing for the draft as posted at that time. Unanimously approved its recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. On November 2nd, last year, we had a similar public hearing as here tonight for discussion. It was determined at that point that some additional work needed to be done, specifically regarding specific aspects of the code as discussed at that time. So it was not approved by you. and we scheduled to have several meetings to review issues and to come to conclusions about revisions that need to be made. We held those meetings, by my record, November 30th and January 4th in public sessions at the library with opportunity for anyone to attend and listen. They were work sessions with you as the Board of Commissioners to review and discuss and agree on revisions that were needed. After that January 4th meeting, we worked to revise the Unified Development Code, which we did, and we posted the revision as currently posted on February 14th and submitted it formally as an application to proceed through the process. On last month in March, the Planning Commission again held a public hearing, considered the code, unanimously approved its recommendation. I believe there's one abstention, as you mentioned earlier, Commissioner Grant. And that brings us to tonight. So that is a very brief and summary timeline focused on the recent events. What was modified between November 2nd, the last time we were here before you with the public hearing, and February 14th is summarized in the memorandum that was provided to you for this meeting in this packet for everyone's benefit. I will briefly review those modifications. They are all indicated with yellow highlighting in the version of the Unified Development Code that's currently posted on the county's website. So every edit that was made to the Unified Development Code between November 2nd and February 14th is clearly identified. Specifically in Article 2, we made a number of edits to the uses table, as it's simply recognized as, regarding some aspects of agricultural use to provide clarification, regarding the question of minor subdivision and major subdivision, to remove that from the uses table and rely on a different article to cover that topic to avoid any confusion or unnecessary duplication. We had some revisions regarding food truck standards, and we added a use category under miscellaneous health practitioners and massage therapists to add that use into the table as it was not previously addressed, and as a question came up about that early this year. And then we made additional edits to the accessory uses table in that chapter, again concerning agricultural uses and functions and food trucks specifically. In Article 3, we made edits concerning agritourism standards. I think everyone recalls the various discussions we've had about agritourism. Emphasizing the master plan approach for agritourism, adding flexibility to the process. We also made a simple edit increasing the allowance of farm dinners to 2 per quarter. Previously it was 1 per quarter. Clarified that state licensing is required for massage therapy. That was an addition. Deleted the requirement for a minimum percentage of anything in a farmer's market to be grown on the property. Added specifications about, again, food trucks and overnight parking. Article 4, which is where we deal with lot sizes, density, and similar standards, dimensional standards. We clarified section 402.11, minimum acreage requirements in order to apply for rezoning. We made clarifications and revisions that would be consistent with the new proposals elsewhere in that article, specifically that in A1, to apply for rezoning, a minimum acreage would be 10. In C1, minimum acreage would be 2, and the same for C3 and C4. In section 403, we clarified that building permits are required for accessory buildings over 400 square feet and for agricultural buildings over 800 square feet, which is consistent with your current practice. In Table 4-1, which defines the dimensional requirements of lots in different categories, different districts, that's where we clarified for A1, major subdivision requirements are a 5-acre minimum lot area with a 100-foot minimum lot width, 20-foot minimum side setbacks for all structure heights. We did away with the difference between single-story and multi-story side setbacks. And we clarified in that table A1 minor subdivision requirements being a 10-acre minimum lot with, again, 100-foot minimum lot width, 20-foot side setbacks. RR requirements clarified to 100-foot minimum lot width and 20-foot side setback. The same applies to R1. Article 5, we modified the large lot split definition to change from 5 to 10 acres. We modified the allowance for dividing property among immediate family and heirs to a minimum lot size requirement of 3 acres. We modified the conventional subdivision allowance of number of lots in a conventional traditional subdivision with frontage on existing public street. That was reduced from 4, as in the previous draft, to 0. And a couple of edits to section 50602, the PRD district, clarifying that the 10% set aside for commercial development may not subsequently be reassigned to a different land use. It must either be perpetually undeveloped, if that's how it turns out, or commercially developed. Concurrently, we deleted the requirements for phased development that would limit additional residential development prior to completion of commercial. Article 9, just a few minor edits to be consistent with new programs such as the county speed tables program and public works standards, following public works additional review. And Article 11, in terms of procedures, we added a clarification that basically expedites or simplifies the requirements for an agritourism master plan. That's the summary of the changes made since last hearing, November 2nd. I will be happy to answer any questions if appropriate, or let you.
Anyone have any questions at this time? All right. Then we will have any comments by individuals in favor. We will get 5 minutes each. Our county manager at the dial will be the timer. Anyone would like to come up and speak in favor of the UDCs? We'll start on this side and y'all can come up and speak in favor.
Megan Gunther, 1379 Barnesville Road in Hamilton. I'm not opposed, maybe not completely in favor, but I don't think it's a completely perfect document, but I don't expect it to be either. Things I did miss from the document, I'm going to start there first. I wish there was a chicken ordinance. Columbus allows chickens on 2 acres, and here in Harris County, that with the changes, we would not allow chickens on less than 5 acres. I think it's a little lot for having chickens. Another change that I was missed is the brewery. I know that that has to do with alcohol ordinance, but I was hoping that we would have that change so we could have breweries and brew pubs in Harris County. The PRD change kind of makes me a little nervous that we are going to allow the density for the PRD without actually receiving any of the commercial development that comes with it. The point of the PRD and the point of having the density is to get the commercial development, and so you're required to not have a requirement for either a pad-ready site or something. I feel like it's just an excuse for us to allow density without actually receiving any of the commercial benefits. Things I do agree with, the A1 zoning being increased to 10 acres. For the fact that we have a mostly agriculture land here, and that every development that comes is a rezoning from A1 to R1 to allow 2 acre lots. Well, the thing is they don't have to rezone from A1 to R1 to have 2 acre lots. The only difference really is to allow chickens or farm animals or something. That's the only difference. So to me, there needs to be some kind of distinguishment between a residential property and an agricultural property. An agricultural property is supposed to promote ag practices, farming, crops, timberland, pasture land, things like that. You can't really do that successfully on 2 acres, so I think increasing the ag property to 10 at least would be smart. I'd honestly like to see it at 12, so we could have conservation land involved there, but I'm not gonna get crazy with that. I also was happy to see that we are limiting the amount of houses on existing streets. Currently, we see a lot of these developments that are happening are creating subdivisions on our current county roads. If you drive down them, you'll see houses that have been there forever, and now they are surrounded by new house, new house, new house, new house, new house, and it's a subdivision without actually really being a subdivision. So I like those changes. Like I said, I don't think it's perfect. I think it's a working document. I do think there has been improvement. I'd like to see that we protect the rural nature of Harris County. If we are going to have a push for density on smaller acreage with PRDs and CUPDs and everything else, I'd also like to see us have a push to keep some of our rural land actual rural and not turn every county road into just a subdivision. So, thank you.
Is there anyone that wants to speak in favor? Seeing none, the ones that would like to speak in opposition, you will also have 5 minutes, and our county manager will be the timekeeper. And we'll once again start on this side. If anybody that wants to be in opposition of the UDCs, you can get up and speak. We'll start over here.
Mr. Chair, and to the rest of the commission, thanks for the opportunity for us to get up and have a word. There is usually not malicious intent when we are.
Excuse me, sir, your name and address?
Oh, I'm so sorry, thank you. My name is Bo Barber II, and my address is 2822 Old West Point Road. I'm on the north end of the county. And as I was saying, usually there is no malicious intent when we look at developing and making our areas a better place for everybody to live. The devil is in the details, however. And I can remember coming back to Georgia from the Midwest and wanting to set up residence. And I didn't have any property. And because I was fortunate, my grandfather that lived here for over 100 years gave me 1/4 of an acre. And at the time, that was permissible for me to build a house in Harris County. Now since then, that was back in the 90s. I am now the owner of a piece of agritourism property. And I am as happy as anybody to see agritourism grow. However, I look to generations that are coming, and I see with the requirement of having 10 acres for an individual to either build a home, bring in a modular home, bring in a tiny house, whatever the structure may be, as an impediment to folks that are potentially really good assets to this county. As a barrier, if one has 10 acres in Harris County on which to build, it is probably not a financial difficulty for them to build a home. But for a young person straight out of college, my children included, with student loans and all of those things, my youngest is an attorney. And she called me up and said, Dad, this is crazy. We're in the middle of, I can't buy a house because of house prices. So I'm saying to the commission, maybe we need to look deeper into the ordinances and their consequence versus the intent. The intent is to, I'm sure, create a quality of life that is good for everyone. But in doing so, we might be shutting out a whole segment of our community that has a right to be in a place here in the county. Now, let's talk about hypotheticals for just a second. Hypothetically, property is an asset. And if me or some other future generation of mine decide that, okay, we've got 4 acres sitting there, I want to sell 2 of them because I just need the asset to be sold so that I can make some money to be able to do something else. Well, without the possibility of building on that property, that asset is greatly decreased in value to the family. Or another hypothetical, I've got a house and I've got 4 acres and I've got a lake on that same property. Well, I want to sell the lake, but I'm limited in the market because I can only sell it for the use of the lake. Nobody can build a house on it because it's 2 acres. You can't do anything with it. And then if we look in, let's go purely recreational. What if you want a hunting camp in Harris County and you don't want to build a brick and mortar structure? And some environmentally would say that it is more environmentally friendly to bring in something that is prefabricated and put it in the space to be used for that purpose. All of those hypotheticals are off the table. They're off the table, and they weren't off the table before the consideration of changing the ordinances. There are good things that have been given. Yes, I like the idea of being able to pass on property with a smaller plot. I like that. Went from 5 to 3. That's great. But what about smaller developers? What if my time is up? That's my time. So again, I thank you for the time. Those are our comments. Thank you.
State your name and your address.
My name is Jeanette Johnson. My address is 3893 Georgia Highway 103, Harris County, Georgia. I stay on the north end. I want to ask if it's okay for the name of the lady that spoke.
Megan.
Megan. With all due respect to the board members and Megan, I do understand that some people are fortunate than others, and we shouldn't be penalized for being fortunate. But also the ones that are not as fortunate should not be penalized either. I would like to see us come in a middle place where, as she was in favor, she's not limited with her chickens, nothing's wrong with that. But a person, someone else who is not interested or doesn't need all the 10 acres or more limitation, not to be in a place where they can't move around either. With fairness, the part of Harris County is growing, and change is great. No one wants to be limited, with all due respect. But no one wants to be put in a box either, because they can't fit into another category. Residential and commercial, to me, should always be separate. For commercial building, 10 acres. I agree. But for residential requirement, 10 acres to build, not fair. It's a difference. So I would like to see us come in the middle. Maybe have a difference for residential and commercial. Having a farm that could be put in commercial, if I'm not mistaken. 10 acres? I agree, you would need 10 acres to have that and have it successful, have the space. But actually just to own a home and to build on a home, you might not necessarily need 10 acres. You know, don't satisfy one and penalize the other. That's what I'm saying. As Mr. Bobby said, the value, if you can be able to sell a piece of property and can't put anything on it because of the size, it's not 10 acres or more, that's gonna limit you. That's gonna limit you. Who's gonna buy it in some cases? That's not fair. At the beginning, I don't think my grandmother would have bought what she bought and left it to me if at some point, in order for me to want to put something else on it, I'm gonna have to have more acres. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody, all right? Come on. Moving this way, I think you'll be good. All right, we got a couple more.
Okay. My name is Brian Stone, BC Stone Homes, 102 South College Street. I'm, by and large, I'm in support of most everything, and I think I'm kind of echoing a lot of what's heard. To subdivide, to require a 10-acre lot minimum to subdivide on a county road is pretty ruthless as compared to, you know, other areas I've seen in the past. And I mean, there are just a ton of conditions out there to where it would be necessary to do so. I mean, track geometry, you know, a creek running along in an inconvenient spot for putting a road in. I mean, there are just a lot of conditions, topography, you know, with topography and other things involved, you know, the shapes of parcels, other things where it'd be there. And I mean, also we develop a lot of mini farm lots, which are 5 to 10 acres, which I don't think most people, you know, would disapprove of. But to develop a mini farm lot with to put in a public street on a 5-acre lot, I mean, you're talking about $150,000 to $200,000 proposition for a developer to be able to do that. It's kind of impossible to do that without the county frontage. I mean, I'm all about not chopping, let's not put 20 in a row and go down the frontage and you know, violate the intent of the ordinance. But other counties have, I know Troop, for example, next door, they have similar language where it's obviously discouraged to strip develop, if you call it, on the county frontage. But they have a conditional use, you know, to where where it's up to the sole discretion of the commission to be able to, you know, say we approve this based off the project as a whole. You know, I mean, if somebody's proposing to do something really nice, or somebody's proposing to, you know, for example, say we were going to put in a nice development with $500,000 and $600,000 homes on you know, nice custom homes on county frontage. I mean, I would think most people would not have an objection to that. But, you know, I would understand if the commission wanted to deny us that we were trying to chop them up on the bare minimum and do that. And so, I don't know, would the commission have any opposition, or, I mean, could you insert some conditional use approval language to give the commission some wiggle room on a case-by-case basis based off the project? I mean, I've cited a few reasons here tonight where it's just not a one-size-fits-all approach, and I think giving you guys or the planning commission the right to say, you know, based off the project, you know, we approve this project, or hey, this is obviously intended to, you know, just get as many lots as you can and build houses all up and down the frontage. We deny that. I mean, it just makes good common sense to, let's not lock this up. Let's give you guys some discretionary approval rights and maybe be able to get something that can kind of accommodate everybody's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I know there was a couple more on this side.
My name is Taylor Griffin. I live at 220 Wood Avenue, Pine Mountain, Georgia, 31822. Thank you for your time. So, I'm going to pose a question. So, if you have 80 acres and you subdivide it into 4 lots, pretty much basic math, we're doing 20-acre lots. When we do 4 of those, now we have to pave a road to service 4 20-acre lots. I would just want y'all to think about that, right? So if we drive down a county road, do we want to see gorgeous farmhouses with legacy home sites on them, or do we want to see back porches? Most of the time, whenever people position their house, you look at gorgeous front doors and pretty porches. You don't look at the back porches. If you drive down East Spot Acre, you see a 6-foot fence, grills, and back porches. Personally, I prefer a rural setting where we're not doing the the eye. So I'd like just for y'all to consider that as we move forward. We are against the 10-acre minimum in A1. I already know this. I'm not going to just beat a horse again, but we're not against change, and I think that's important for everyone to understand. We're not sitting here asking y'all not to change things, but a 400% increase is hard to grab. I would much rather see this done on a much smaller scale, but it is up to y'all, and it is y'all's process. But this is something we need to consider, and I think continue to vet, because this is a huge impact. This would also reduce everything that would be remaining at A1. 50% of the homes that were built in Harris County last year would have been eliminated in A1. Not the whole county, just the half that were leaving in A1. And that is a legit stat, 50%. So just consider that as well. And there are a lot of local professionals. We've talked to many of y'all, from surveyors, builders, developers, and I just honestly, I feel like it has all been completely ignored from a feedback. Doesn't mean questions haven't been asked, and it's y'all's right to do it, but it is. I just want to make that statement, that I feel like it's just been completely ignored, and it's slightly frustrating, because there are a lot of variables and a lot of money that's invested, and we're wanting to improve the county just like they are. Our desire is to do nothing but build legacy home sites where people's kids come back to those homes. We're not out to do anything but that. So I'm not going to rattle on any longer. Probably the long night ahead of us. And also, I'd like to make one more point. I think I've been to all of these, and I've only seen one person speak in favor of this. I would just like to point that out. Just one.
May I ask one question? You continue to say we, who are you representing?
I'm a partner at Be Smart Building,
Okay.
so we'll build custom homes. Yes, ma'am.
Ben Simpson, 373 Pond Street, Lisbon.
What was that name again?
Ben Simpson. This proposed UDC will disenfranchise agricultural property owners by reducing potential sale value of property. It's an unconstitutional overreach. As a member of a local business, I strongly believe this will cause lasting economic damage. I don't think this is the best course of action for our county.
Thank you. All right, I think we've made it to you, sir.
Chopping at the bits to get here. To this commission, commissioners here in Harris County who serve us, and county commissioner, and also these people who have taken their time to come to this commission meeting because of what they believe in. I've only been a resident of Harris County for 2 years, 4 months.
Could you state your name and your address?
Mark Lawrence.
Thank you.
15 Richardson Court, Fortson 31808.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I was told in seminary that it's better to pick apples from a low-hanging limb than to try to get the apples from the top. What I've seen happen here in Harris County since I've been here, 315 have turned into south side of Atlanta. You can't get out onto 315 from Hollow Creek Road there. Right at our subdivision, it takes 15 minutes. It took me that the other day because the school buses passing at 8:05 and just different things going on. And what my thing would be, I oppose what's going on as far as the UDC, as far as the overdeveloping so fast, and we're not facing the infrastructure problems that come along with that. I don't know if you have seen or heard that if it was an accident on 185 going south or north, that it would take sometime the help of Columbus Fire Department to come and help with what's going on. Because we have volunteers, and we are so thankful that we have volunteers in our communities, that people that come out and help with tragedies and house fires, which we already had two over in Oak Park, Oak Creek subdivision, Oak Hill subdivision. All I'm saying is we need to sit back, slow down just a little bit. Let the people, I heard the young man say, let's consider everyone. I don't have land, I don't have 10 acres. I don't have to worry about paving a road to put my grandchildren at the back of that land. I don't have to worry about that. But I would like to see the infrastructure be matched with what's the developments are in this community. I want to go to the grocery store on my exit. I wouldn't mind it being Publix, and I'm not, Publix didn't pay me to come up here. But I'm just saying, I love Billy's, but I have to go to Columbus to go to Publix or Walmart. All I'm saying is let's slow it to a pace where development infrastructure would be considered along with residential growth. I had no idea that I would be able to hear the highway from my house when I moved there. I love the deers eating my yard. I mean, they ate up my flowers the first 6 months. That was fine. Now I don't see them. No rabbits in the yards anymore. And all I'm saying is, let's think about people. Everybody's here for a reason. Nobody came here because they didn't have nothing to do on tonight. Am I right? Let us think about everybody. And Miss Langston, thank you. Mr. Grant, thank you. Miss Andrews, thank you. Thank you, Miss Irons, for what you all do. You have a great responsibility to think ahead for people that is not even in the county yet. But at the margin of growth right now, there won't be many people coming to the county because they can't build if you put a 10-acre minimum on building. That's not fair to everybody. I wanted to be here. I wasn't going to build. Been through that. That's why I don't have hair now. And I want to let you know that we have to understand that there are citizens that want to come to Harris County. But when they hear of the bickering going on because the commission, and I'm not calling, I heard, that was a great horse who you talking about his company. I'm not here representing the company. I'm here to represent the people that cannot speak for themselves. I want to be the voice for the voiceless. I want to be the helper for the ones that can't help themselves. But what are we going to do? What is our charge right now? Are we going to, I know a lot of people are pulling on you right now.
That's your time, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Adams, 809 US 27. I'm a landowner here in Harris County. I'm a business owner here in Harris County for the last 10 years, and I've worked in Harris County over the last 20 years. The good man from Woods in previous meetings stated that all of this was kicked off with something that has been termed a big idea. Since then, you've heard from those like me, whether they be landowners or business owners. Some of you have talked with us on the phone, and some have spoken with us in person. You've seen our faces at meeting after meeting. You and the Planning Commission have heard our voices, whether you were listening to them or not. We have also heard some of your voices throughout this process. Voices that have made comments such as, we've been working on this for too long, let's just pass it. If they don't like it, they can move. And we are a county elitist. These comments, among others, have left us asking ourselves, is this task too difficult for them? Are we the ones they wanted to move out? And do they actually consider themselves elite? All of these questions cause us to wonder who is actually being represented here. Of your constituent base, how many or what percentage have you spoken to about these changes or helped understand the hidden effects that you are proposing? Do you even understand the effects that you're proposing? To speak of just one of these, some 90% of Harris County is currently A1 zoning. You're asking for a 400% increase to the minimum lot size. To put it in real numbers, a piece of property that you or someone you represent would want to buy and put their house on for them or one of their kids, today's cost would be around $20,000 to $40,000. But under these new regulations, a piece of property to build the same home in 90% of Harris County would cost $70,000 to $100,000. Where are your impact studies on these proposed changes? Where are the professional opinions you have gathered, not your own? Where's the work you've put in to actually represent the best interest of those voters that put you here? Going back to the beginning, the big idea. It leaves us wondering, whose big idea is it? With such little attention being given on the fact that this UDO revision is still riddled with bad decisions, or even the overabundant outcry from professionals, business owners, and landowners, why are we to think that once these adverse effects have taken place and come to light, you will be moved to fix them? But to those of you who have fought the fight of common sense and kept the focus on the many and not the few in mind, we thank you, and rest assured, we have heard you as well. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Trent Griffin. I live at 1383 Old Shiloh Road, Shiloh, Georgia. I'm a partner in Be Smart Building, just out of Hamilton here on Highway 27. My first question tonight is, will the sons and daughters of Harris County be able to return home to raise their families here? And is this a community where we want our teachers, sheriff's deputies, and essential workers to be able to live and play? My job at Be Smart Building is I do the majority of our sales and estimating. Every day, I meet with families who are trying to return home to Harris County. They live in the surrounding areas now, and they are unable to do so because the cost of homes are just too high. As a matter of fact, just this week alone, our company set personal records for selling homes in the $180 to $200 price range per square foot for relatively normal homes. These aren't for professional athletes, these are for everyday people. I feel that's important to note since the average new home sale when the UDC project kickoff presentation was made to the DOC on March 3rd of 2020 was around $100 to $120 per square foot. When the Board of Commissioners and Planning Commission first began to work on the UDC in March of 2020, it was a totally different world. And any conclusions that the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners might have made do not necessarily apply today. As crazy as that may seem, it's true. It's changed that much. When the commissioners first took a look at this, I understand that those times were so different and it was so confusing about who was coming and everything else that it was very, very tricky for us to be able to really lay out a plan forward on what was the right growth to be made. But I ask you this, let's not encourage the local economic collapse any faster than what may already be approaching. Let's do an economic impact study to be able to understand what we're currently dealing with in this present market. My second question is this. Many members of the Planning Board and the Board of Commissioners has explained to me that the objective of this is to drive growth to the cities. If this is true, I find it puzzling that our company has spoke with and had to inform multiple mayors about the proposed UDC, and that they had no idea that these changes were even being considered. I think that if I was trying to drive growth to Harris County cities, that I would have been a good starting place to have asked them what they needed to support growth and if their cities could have handled this growth. This has forced me to begin to question the intent of the proposed zoning changes. I would have loved to ask the supporters of these changes what their real agenda is. seeing as how the only one I've heard speak for it is Megan, and I don't question her intentions, I can't do that. But seeing as how they've never shown up here for the public hearings, it's hard to know who they are. In my opinion, this could be a bait and switch, a land grab, like what we've seen in Columbus for generations. Crashing the value of large tracts and purchasing them for less than fair market value today, only to change the rules of the game when the timing is right for them and stand to make, or in my opinion, steal millions of dollars from the citizens of Harris County. Finally, I'll leave you with this. The Comprehensive Master Plan from 2019 on page 6 reads, critical to the protection of Harris County's quality of life is continuing to update the land use ordinance. The process must be clear and easy to navigate by Harris County and its citizens and investors. We have a broken system now. Just last month at the Board of Commissioners meeting, we heard board members make comments about their opinions and personal feelings, where in regards to zoning in a particular area that fit well within the limitations of what our comprehensive plan and map lay out. No disrespect to any of the members of the board, but your personal feelings and opinions have no place in a matter of zoning. The process must be clear and easy to navigate by Harris County citizens, as per page 6 of the Comprehensive Growth Plan. So ask yourself this, is this UDC clear and easy to navigate? The answer is resounding no. So let's work together to create a new UDC that is both clear and easy for all to use. That's the end of what I wrote, but while I was sitting over there, I had a few other thoughts. I'd like to point out that ag tourism is 5 acres.
That's your 5 minutes, sir. Thank
And
you.
to build a house is 10. So,
Good evening. My name is Tyler Finley. I'm here representing Houston Homes. Our address is 8219 North Crossing Court, Fortson, Georgia. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Before we get started on talking about the development code and the proposed development code, I'd like to point out that Houston Homes is now a employee-owned company. That's important.
Excuse me, what's that address again?
I'm sorry, 8219 North Crossing Court, Fortson. Let's see where we're here. That's important. It's important because a lot of our employees, or many of our employees, live in Harris County. They were born in Harris County. They moved to Harris County since they started working for us. Either way, they love Harris County. We love Harris County. We want what's best for Harris County. So now that everybody knows that, I want to talk about Houston just a little bit more. And again, this is important because it's our livelihood. I want to take that time to take a moment to dispel a common misconception. It's pretty common to hear that new Houston home families will be a burden or a drain on Harris County services as they move in. Now, we talked to the tax assessor on that, and we figured out that the break-even point to negate any negative pull on the system is about mid-300s, right? Our average price point is $410,000. Not only are we not a drain on the infrastructure or the services, we provide a quality home that actually accounts for a net positive for the county. I think that's an important thing to take note of. Right? There's always a small group of folks that show up, and I'm glad to see everybody here tonight. It's a great turnout. I think everybody will be very happy for that. There's about 50 folks that kind of 40 earlier, a couple more folks came in. So we've got 50 folks here. That's less than 1% of the county. So we're going to hear from less than 1% of the county tonight. What about the rest of the folks? Well, we can turn to social media. There's a wonderful Facebook page called Save Harris County. There's about 2,700 folks that like that page. That's less than 10% of the county. So actually it's about 7.4%. So now you have 80%, 9% of folks, and you have another 90% of Harris County that's not being represented. When I came in here tonight, I absolutely expected that there would be two types of folks in this room. Home builders and folks who are opposed to home builders. It looks like we got some other folks in here. I'm glad to see you, for sure. Folks, how do they know? Trent brought it up a few minutes ago, and David brought it up. How do they know how this is impacting them? Do they know what's here? Who represents those folks? You guys do, right? But we want to be part of that as well. We want to be here. We want to fight for those folks. We want to fight for Harris County. We want to fight for what's best. We represent the quiet, busy families that work, go to school, that pay taxes. You know, they don't get involved in a lot of this stuff because one, they either don't know about it or they don't have time. Right? They're busy doing things, they're living their life, doing what everybody's supposed to do. We also represent families that have bought land to provide for their future generations. They want to leave a legacy for their family. Both sets of families, whether it's somebody coming in to buy a house or whether it's somebody who bought land some years ago, both groups are affected greatly by this proposed UDC. The hurt, I mean, it's going to stop some of that growth. And you'll hear from Jeff Koski, you'll hear from David Kirk in a little bit. And David's an attorney planner out of Atlanta, and Jeff did an economic impact study for us. I think he has a copy if you guys don't have one yet. He'll make sure you guys get one. As we talk about representation, we can take a look at national government, right? National government policies, a lot of times, we'll see that the lawmakers and the politicians who make the rules will make a set of rules for themselves and then apply a different standard to others. I don't think that's what we want in Harris County. You know, that's certainly not the legacy that I would want the future Harris County residents to see. Land values, based on this new proposed UDC, I believe land values will decline, and I'm basing that on things that have happened in the past. If you go back and look, Cocoa Lake subdivision was purchased for $5,000 an acre in 1980. $5,000 an acre. It's a pretty good bit of money back then. We bought some land, or purchased some land not far from there, $4,500 an acre. That's 40 years later. It's incredible. You know, keep in mind, the code back then was for 1 acre lots. Go a little bit further, we're talking about Still Creek off of County Line Road. Still Creek back in 97, or I'm sorry, 07. That was quick. I do appreciate your time. I will ask that you do not approve the ordinance as it's written. I ask that you disapprove it totally and come back in 2 years when you read the comprehensive plan.
Vice Chairman, County Commissioners, thank you. My name is Jeff Koski. I'm here on behalf of Tyler Homes and the local home builder association. My business address is 1447 Peachtree Street in Atlanta. As Tyler mentioned, we did an economic and fiscal impact study of potential zoning scenarios in the county. And I want to share some of those results with you. I've got copies for you all. A lot of numbers. My firm is KB Advisory Group. We are economic development consultants and real estate market analysts. So this is kind of part and parcel of what we do, is to analyze these types of situations in planning around the state of Georgia. And so, as I was saying, there's a lot of numbers. I've got a copy for you. You might want to, if you're interested, you can look through in detail. I'll try not to bore you with too many numbers. But what we did is we came up with some different scenarios that may occur because of the rezoning. Really, there's 3 scenarios. The first scenario is what we're calling the proposed zoning scenario. And ultimately, what we see happening under the scenario is that the home building market slows dramatically, right? That is an outcome, an externality, as economists say, of this zoning change, is that the home building market will slow dramatically. And I think the home builders tend to agree with that, as you've heard. So what we did in that scenario is we said, look, the comp plan mentions from, that was finished in 2019, that the county needs about 500 new residents to meet, or 500 new homes to meet growth expectations over the next decade, right? So that's about 10 sales a year, or that's about 50 sales a year over 10 years. So that's one scenario. We're saying those homes might be more expensive because they're going to be on bigger lots, right? So instead of the $400,000, $450,000 average price today, let's call it $600,000. So yes, you're slowing down the home building market, but you're increasing the overall average price. Scenario 2 is basically what we've got today: 200 homes being sold in the county at about $450,000 as a price on average-ish. And then the third scenario is what happens if you went the other direction? You opened up a spigot and you started selling homes at about the same pace that you did in about 15 years ago. Because about 15 years ago, there was 400 home sales a year in the county, right? So we went from 400 down to about 50 during the recession. We're now up to about 200. And so these scenarios kind of take in that range, sort of from 50 to 400 a year. And again, we felt it's reasonable given that that's, you know, part of the history of home building in the county. So what we did is we looked at it from an economic and fiscal point of view, right? So economics, you know, money moving around the county, but also fiscal, what does it do to the county's bottom line? Because again, in the comp plan, it does state that housing, right, it says right in there that housing is intended to help prop up the county's finances. The taxes that are levied upon residential properties are intended to help pay for the county services. So we looked at it from both an economic standpoint and a fiscal standpoint. And so as we looked at it, and again, I'll spare you all the numbers, but that's kind of the setup, if you will. The one thing that I'll point out is we did this in that kind of current state scenario. We've measured the economic impact of the home building industry in Harris County today. We estimate about 400 jobs from the home building industry in Harris County, about $50 million in total economic impact. So that's a serious industry, right? And so if you at about 200 homes a year, right? So if you slash that, if you're down to 50 homes a year, you've cut dramatically into that 400 jobs in the county. So again, from an economic development standpoint, you know, going out and finding 400 new jobs or even 200 new jobs is, as you all know, is a tall task. Right, to attract 200 jobs at a time into the county. So the home building industry is very much an economic driver when it comes to jobs and when it comes to employment and salaries in the county. The other thing we looked at from an economic standpoint, is the support that new homes bring to the county for retail. Someone mentioned a grocery store earlier, right? So if you're selling 50 new homes a year in the county, so you got 50 new households coming in, that's support for about 12,000 square feet of retail, approximately. And if you move that number up, you're supporting 50,000 square feet of new retail every year. So there are major economic consequences to reduce it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Kirk with the law firm Troutman, Pepper, Hamilton, Sanders, 600 Peachtree Street, Atlanta. Here engaged by Houston Homes on behalf of the Home Builders Association. You've heard from Mr. Finley, so you know this is a very serious matter for Houston Homes and other home builders, as it has significant implications for their activities and their property in the county. You've also just heard from Mr. Koski, so you know this is not just about lot sizes. It's really about the county's ability to grow in a way that allows for a variety of housing types and yields sufficient tax revenue to provide adequate services. Now, what I'd like to talk about are some of the legal and planning concerns raised by this proposal. I should preface my remarks by letting you know that in addition to being an attorney, I'm a certified city planner with more than a decade of planning experience prior to beginning my law practice, so I have some background in this area. First thing I'd like to talk about is exclusionary zoning. The first gentleman that spoke in opposition said it probably more eloquently than I can. But these are land use and development policies that have the effect, whether intentional or not, of limiting access to a community or neighborhood by individuals and families based on socioeconomic status, race, or some other protected status. In practice, we would submit the proposed 10-acre residential lot minimums in the A1 zoning district may have the effect of preventing the development of housing affordable to the average Harris County resident, thus preventing many families and individuals from purchasing homes in large portions of the county. If adopted, this provision leaves the county open to a future challenge claiming the UDC effectively prevents equal access to housing. Courts across multiple jurisdictions have found local ordinances to be invalid due to the exclusionary effect of restrictive housing policies. Additionally, these restrictive regulations could have legal implications under fair housing law. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the creation of nonconformities. The adoption of the UDC as drafted will likely have the effect of rendering certain existing lots in the A1 zoning district that are under that required size what are called legal nonconforming lots. particularly lots in subdivisions that are not yet built upon. This could limit or even eliminate a property owner's rights to build or expand their home, rebuild their homes in the event of fire or other catastrophe, develop the site, or subdivide the property. Third, this commercial development set aside. The proposed UDC requires planned residential development set aside a minimum of 10% of its area for C1 or C3 commercial development, and provides that such set aside, quote, shall not subsequently be reassigned to a different use than C1 or C3 commercial development. As a matter of public policy, Georgia law prohibits local governing bodies from taking any action that would so-called bind the hands of a future governing body on legislative matters. Georgia statutes and case law are clear that an action by a governing body purporting to bind future governing bodies is considered void and unenforceable. This rule has been held to apply specifically to actions involving zoning matters by county commissions, which are legislative inactions. The public policy behind these rulings is simple and compelling. Zoning and land use regulations are legislative matters, and the action by one governing body cannot be allowed to thwart the duty of future elected officials to legislate as needed to address future circumstances and represent the interests of future citizens. Finally, the elimination of lots fronting existing public streets in conventional subdivisions. This provision, shown in Table 5.1 of the UDC, reduces the number of lots in a conventional subdivision allowed to front on an existing public street from 4 to 0. Thus, any such lots already in existence will be made non-conforming, reducing the value of such properties due to the uncertainty of the owner's ability to rebuild, build, enlarge, or expand their home. Sufficient restriction or impact on such properties could result in a regulatory taking of property for which the county is liable for compensation. These are but some of our concerns from a legal and planning standpoint. We also have concerns about spot zoning, the specifics of the non-conformity provisions, public notice requirements, and public hearing procedures, among others. The time does not allow me to go into that this evening. We believe some of these provisions have the potential to eliminate, through regulation, the ability of Houston Homes and others in the county to make reasonable economic use of their land, effectively taking it without just compensation. For that reason, we formally preserved our rights as provided under Georgia law in a letter that I believe was handed out that I sent to Mr. Williams. Respectfully, we would request you either reject these proposed changes or defer action so that these and other critical flaws in the proposed UDC may be eliminated. We're happy to work with you in a cooperative manner toward that end. Thank you so much.
Anyone else that wants to speak against?
Dwight Langston, 56th Street, Fulton, Georgia, 31808. And for the record, I'm the husband of Commissioner Becky Langston, and these are my opinions and my opinions alone. I am for growth. I realize we must have growth to get commercial business to locate in Harris County, which would stabilize our tax base. I would like to state that Becky and I live in the center of this growth, the very center. I don't have a problem with it. I love to get up in the morning, get on the golf course, go get something to eat, buy groceries, and come home. I would also like to thank the builders who live in Harris County for choosing to build in Harris County. The 10-acre portion of the UDC is, in my opinion, and I don't see why anybody could argue with it, an attempt to slow growth. And it is almost surely an attempt to keep low-income families from moving, being able to move and live in Harris County. There's no other way to look at it. In an attempt to slow growth, you're putting people out of work. I'd like to give an example of an 8-acre agricultural plot that's passed down from generation to generation to generation, and a great-great-great-grandchild gets the property. He's excited about owning the property. He's just married, and in an attempt to better himself, he wants to put a mobile home on his 8-acre lot. Do you want to be the one that looks this couple in the eye and say, no, you cannot do that? There are many examples of this in the UDC as currently written. I ask you to please study the different negative effects this will have on Harris County before approving this UDC as currently written. And may I add Not one person voted in favor of this in the planning commission. Only one tonight. This should speak very, very strong volumes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Craig Greenlaw. I live at 1568 Bartlett's Ferry Road. And after attending the previous meetings of the UDC and the majority of the items mentioned tonight and in the other meetings by the speakers included private property rights, production, inability to get the highest and best use of one's land, and the overall degradation of property values has not been adequately addressed in these discussions and the amendments that have been discussed tonight. Therefore, I respectfully ask, as a member of the UDC committee, I've served 2 years on that committee, to please continue to work to get the document correct. I ask you, I plead with you, and do not pass it with flaws that are in it with the intent of amending it later. Thank you.
John Budd, 162 Winding Lake. Appreciate y'all's time. Glad you're here. So most of what I've heard tonight, a lot of what I've heard tonight is written here, so I don't have a whole lot to say. Other than when I came to Harris County in 1965, I was brought here by my father. Was a World War II veteran, a Korean War veteran, a Vietnam veteran. When he came back from Vietnam, he wanted to get out of the city. And he moved to Harris County. He was a farmer. My family was originally from Tennessee. He was a farmer. So we had 300 acres, we had cows. And I grew up in Harris County. Went all the way through the school system, from Mountain Hill to Harris County High. Went to college, went to the Air Force. Came home, had a job, had a great job, the same job I had in the Air Force, at a local hospital. The only way I could afford a house in Harris County at that point, in 1983, was my grandmother in Pine Mountain Valley gave me 1 acre from a larger parcel. A1, land. Well, I would have had to probably stay in an apartment in Columbus. I think what I'm thinking about here, for me, and thinking about young couples, I'm a realtor and I get calls every day. And I would say 75% of the calls every day end like this. I don't have anything that's affordable for you here. I have nothing to show you here. There's no inventory here. And there's nothing in your price range. And everybody today in this market brings a pre-qualification sheet, so I know up front, and they know up front what they can afford, but they can't come to Harris County. And like so many people said, that is a problem. You can package it any way you want, but it's a problem. So what I want to say, because just about everything has been said that I want to say, I just want to leave with this. And the point I want to make tonight is choice. Do we have a choice? The choice that the Constitution allows us. We got attorneys here that probably know a lot more than I do. So I'm going to paraphrase what I think the 5th and 18th Amendments say. And it gives me the right to sell property, to build on the property, to lease the property, to control access to the property, to subdivide the property. Okay, that's a very big paraphrase, by the way. So if you want to look at the Constitution, you get home and say, that guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. You might be on that, but let me just say this in closing. Overview of this is, I've heard that if it was 10 acres, you could apply for rezoning, and rezoning might, a lot of the rezoning I see doesn't get approved. Some does, but a lot of it doesn't. So this is what I think. I think a taking can come in two forms. A taking of the property can come in two forms under the Constitution. The taking may be physical, which means that the government literally takes the property from the owner. Or the taking may be constructive, also called regulatory taking, which means that the government restricts the owner's rights so much that the governmental action becomes the functional equivalent of a physical seizure. And that's what I feel like. I feel like you're physically seizing my land. And I feel like you're not giving me a choice. You're not giving other people choices that we have and our forefathers afforded us in the Constitution. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Randy Rogers. I live at 1089 Red Oak Drive in Webley Hall. I've lived there for 6 years now, living in a mobile home. Me and my wife have tried to afford something better, to get a little bit of acreage. I believe the minimum was 2 acres, and that would be nice to have. We would love to have that. My son, my stepdaughter both live in Columbus because they can't afford to live out here. We can't afford to move out of the place that we're in Million Lakes, to be able to get somewhere where we'd be, have a little more room, and try to get out of that area. I oppose, doing the 10-acre minimum because people like me will not be able to afford to move out and be able to get something that we would truly love. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak against?
Meeting Commissioners, Jim Fjord, 233 Dogwood Lane West. I had no plans on speaking on this. I've been listening to it for a couple of years now. And back in the beginning, I remember seeing in my hometown paper up in Pennsylvania, yes, I'm originally from the north, but I denounced my Yankee citizenship. I'm a true Southerner. And I saw they were doing a UDC up there. And something hit me, just a little right here. UDC, is that at the federal level? And just like the gentleman was speaking about the Constitution and how his father defended that, and a lot of others have defended that. If this UDC is being started at the federal level, then it's looking at unifying what the federal level wants to unify. I would ask the commissioners to consider and stand up to the federal government. I know you have to follow the laws, the state and the federal. And I would ask you to consider standing up to the federal government and having a unified development code for the citizens of Bearstown.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ricky Turnage. I live at 115 Wells Drive in Columbus. I'm in Utah. And I've been living out here most of my married life, 39 years. And I raised my kids out here. Now they have kids. And, I'm a local builder, built custom home. And, I oppose the 10-acre minimum. I built quite a few houses of kids that grew up with my kids. And, it's hard for them. Right now with building materials like it is, it's hard, for these young couples to, be able to afford a house, period, with material like it is, on 2 acres. But, putting a 10-acre minimum on it, it really makes it hard for them. I just hate to see us do that and, make it where, you can't put, but, it limits us, especially the kids that, a lot of these have grown up, raised out here. So that makes it hard on them. So I just, hope y'all reconsider that. Changing it, if we have to change it, I think, 3 acres or 4 acres, start with, revisit it, look at it 5, 10 years, and, go from there. But I think 10 acres is a little much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
name is Angie Tommy. I live at 111 Mount Airy Road, Waverly Hall, Georgia. Tommy, T-O-M-M-E-Y. And actually, somewhere on the fence with for and against it. Unlike most of the people who have spoken against it, I don't have any financial gain out of this being passed, just as Megan didn't either. Most of the individuals who have come up here and spoken directly benefit from there being more lax regulations in regards, especially to agricultural land. Georgia farmland is among the most threatened in the nation, according to the American Farm Trust. Between 2001 and 2016, 544,000 acres of agricultural land in Georgia were developed. 195 of those acres of which were considered the best land for growing food and crops. As part of what we've seen with issues in supply chain, it's going to be real fun to have all of these subdivisions destroying all of the agricultural land and trying to chew on what they're made out of. I mean, it's gotten a little out of control. I actually think that there needs to be more community education so people understand what's happening. There are a lot of comments about a 10-acre minimum to build a house, and people aren't realizing that if you want to build a house on your parents' property, you can have an exemption. There are steps that you can take to be able to do that. It really only directly impacts the developers that are building a lot of these subdivisions. There's somebody that we know in Waverly Hall bought a 100-year-old farmhouse. They were only able to afford half of the acreage that went with it. They thought they had an agreement with the seller that they would then be able to purchase the acreage behind that. In the meantime, 2 houses were built directly beside them, right behind each other. Before they could get that agreement solidified, a builder offered that person more money than these people could afford. So now, in this 100-year-old farmhouse, they have a house behind them and 3 houses beside them. And that's what we continuously see as you're driving around. We went and visited another farmer off Denny Road last weekend. He has a large parcel of land. He's never, ever had to put a fence up. Now going down this little part of the dirt road, there's at least 15 new houses being built, all of them dumping out directly onto that road. He said he's going to have to now fence his entire property because of the increased traffic and people in that area. People with vehicles, all-terrain vehicles, have started driving across his property and destroying it. And he has called the police several times in regards to this issue. So, unlike others, I don't think that this goes deep enough. I do think that there needs to be a 12-acre minimum so that they can, if it's in ag land, get that tax break for putting it in conservation. And I do think there needs to be more community education in regards to what these actually mean for the actual community. Thank you.
Is there anyone against?
Thank you. I'm Bradley Jones, 2520 Nancy Street, Columbus, Georgia, current president of the State Home Builders Association. You've heard from everybody in the room, very good points opposing this. We are an association in favor of affordable housing and making dreams come true for people. The way this is written currently, that eliminates a huge, huge amount of people from being able to move into the county. So we're opposed to this, and hope y'all consider that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak against? Mr. Lee, would you like to do any kind of rebuttal or not? Since really it's not you doing it.
I think not so much rebuttal, but for education purposes, simply like to clarify the specifics of the 10-acre minimum that has been discussed by most commenters thus far. 10 acres as a minimum lot size applies specifically and only to cases of minor subdivision, which is a procedure or process allowed by the code, which does not require any approval prior to development, does not require approval by planning commission or board of commissioners, not a rezoning process, et cetera. It's simply a process of subdividing land with a specified number of lots that can be subdivided in one minor subdivision action. Currently, that happens, and it is currently allowed to create 2-acre lots in the ag zoning district. So it is an increase proposed from 2 to 10 for that process. It is not stating that the new minimum lot size in A1 is 10 acres. The proposed new minimum lot size in A1 is 5 acres, and that is achievable through, and that's for subdivision purposes, that's achievable through a conventional subdivision process. There's also a new conservation subdivision process allowed, which could provide for even smaller lots in exchange for open space. So there are variations, and I think it's another point regarding actually building on a lot. The 10 acres applies to subdividing in order to create new lots. Existing lots of record do not require 10 acres in order to be constructed on. An existing lot of record does not have to be 10 acres in order to be built on. It could be less than. Really, there's no restriction on getting a building permit to construct a home on an existing lot in A1. This applies specifically, the 10 and 5 acres applies to new subdivision of land in A1. With that clarification, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you. I will close this public hearing. And I have been asked by Commissioner Zerner, since he was unable to be here tonight, to table the action of the vote to the April 19th meeting. So that is what I'm going to do at this time per his wishes. So I'm tabling the action and the discussion of the commissioners to the April 19th meeting, the action of the vote.
Yeah.